Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Talking Spices. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, and that way you'll be able to follow me along on my cooking journey and see recipes every week just like this. So today we're making pesto pasta with chicken and shrimp. So let's get into the recipe. Okay, so here are the ingredients. I've got 2 chicken breasts cut up into cubes. I've got 30 pieces of shrimp, some chicken broth, mushrooms, and here for the spices we've got a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a dash of red pepper flakes to taste, salt to taste, and half a teaspoon of paprika. And then we've got the same exact thing on the other side. So we're using pesto and we're using fettuccine for this. So there are a few more ingredients I have not shown here, so I will mention them as we go along. So here we're just adding in the spices to the chicken. And you're going to want to just give that a good mix and try to coat all the chicken there with the spices. So with the salt, you definitely don't even need salt. I just added a little bit just to fry up the chicken with it and the shrimp, but there is a lot of sodium in this dish with your chicken broth, and then the pesto has salt in it as well. So definitely if you're trying to reduce the amount of sodium in this dish, you don't even need salt in this step. Okay, so I'm just doing the same thing here and adding in the spices to the shrimp and mixing that well together. So typically you could just use one of these proteins in this dish, and the reason I've added chicken is simply because my husband, he has this thing where when he eats shrimp he actually feels more hungry after, so it was his request that I add chicken, so that's the reason for using both of these. Okay, and I'm going to be cooking them separately into these 2 frying pans. I could have done it one at a time in one pan, but in the interest of time, I'm just trying to cook this as fast as possible. So the chicken will take a little bit longer than the shrimp. And for the shrimp, it's important that you don't overcook it. So you're going to want to just remove it from the heat as soon as it's pink all around. So it doesn't take very long, probably about 5 to 7 minutes or so on medium heat. So you just want to keep stirring it and checking on it and making sure that all the sides are cooked evenly. So I'm using 2 separate spoons here. I'm trying not to cross-contaminate, but so everything's been separate the whole time, just in case you're wondering. So the shrimp looks to be about done here. As long as it's pink all around, then that should be good. And then we're going to remove that. So I'm just moving it to a plate now, and I'm going to keep that frying pan and cook the mushrooms in there. So I'm adding in about a tablespoon of butter. And you know, again, like if you're going for low sodium or low fat content here, you could use olive oil or some Pam spray. And here I'm adding in garlic. So this was something I forgot to mention in the beginning. So I'm using 3 cloves of garlic and just crushing that up into the pan. And I will list all the ingredients and all the measurements in the description below, as always. And that way you'll have everything you need. So as I've mentioned in other videos, garlic is really quick. It only takes 1 minute to cook and you don't want to burn it. So I can start to smell that garlic right about now. It's such a lovely smell. I love garlic. So I'm adding in the mushrooms now. And these were the pre-washed, pre-cut mushrooms, so it makes it really easy to just dump it in the pan. And we're just going to cook those mushrooms until they're soft and a brown color. So I add a little bit of salt there just to speed up the process. So once these mushrooms are cooked, I'm just going to transfer it to this other pan, and that's simply because it's a bigger pan and we're going to be adding all the ingredients to it eventually, so I'll have the space to just mix all the chicken and the shrimp and then the sauce. So yeah, as you saw there, I added in the chicken that was fully cooked, and we're just going to mix that together and let it sit for a few minutes just to combine the spices and give the mushrooms a couple more minutes to finish cooking if they need to. Meanwhile, I am boiling my water here for the pasta. So pretty simple making pasta, just boil water, add in the pasta and let it boil. So here, going back to my pan, I'm adding in the pesto. So I've used this PC brand pesto. I've used other kinds in the past, and so just any kind that you like should do the trick. So I'm adding in the whole thing there, which came to about a cup in total, and then I'm going to be adding in a cup of chicken stock. And with this, I kind of go little by little. I gradually add more as needed. So mixing that together and seeing how much liquid that's going to produce. So you want to blend it really well, get all the pesto combined with the broth. And so I've decided that I want it to be a little bit more liquidy, so I'm adding in half a cup of broth. So in total that was a cup and a half of broth. Okay, so this is something I didn't mention in the beginning as well. So we're going to be making a roux. So a roux is a combination of milk and cornstarch or flour. So I'm using half a cup of milk, and I'm using a tablespoon of cornstarch. And so this is also something you measure gradually. So I'm going to try with 1 tablespoon of cornstarch and see if that thickens the sauce to my liking. And if it needs more, then I'm going to add more. I just like to do that as I'm cooking. You have to use your judgment and sometimes and just see how much you need, because the last thing you want is to make it too thick and then you have to add more liquid, and then it's never going to get the way that you want it to be. So here I'm gradually going to be putting in the milk. And you could use cream, but I had milk, so that's what I used. So I've just added in a little bit of that, maybe half of what I had, half of the milk I had there. And I'm gonna give it a good mix and see how that's thickening up, if it's thickening up the way that I'm envisioning it to be. If not, okay, so I'm adding more here because I want it to be a little thicker. So so that was about half a tablespoon of cornstarch. And then mixing it with the remainder of the milk that I had in there, and just going to put all of that in there. So now I'm giving it a mix, and the heat really activates the cornstarch right away. That's why I like to use cornstarch rather than flour. And that's looking to be really, really good. So that's the thickness that I was looking for. So in total, I used 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch and half a cup of milk. Alright, so after letting that sauce sit for a few minutes, it is ready to serve. Look at that beautiful sauce. Oh my goodness, it looks so good. Okay, this is definitely comfort food. If you're on a diet or on a healthy lifestyle, call it a cheat day and just make this pasta. You will not regret it. So I've cooked up my fettuccine. It's ready to go here, and I'm just serving it, and obviously it's burning my hands. So there we go, there's some fettuccine, and we're going to be adding a little more and covering it with that beautiful, lovely sauce. It smells so good. There's chicken and shrimp and garlic and pesto. Oh my goodness, it just doesn't get better than that. Comfort food at its finest. So I'm serving that now, and it's just about ready to eat. Look at that, guys. Yummy. So I hope you enjoy this recipe, and thank you so much for watching. Definitely subscribe for more recipes like this, and let me know what you think. Enjoy.